What is up, guys? It is 7/12/2026. Tomorrow is Monday, 7/13/2026, and I just wanted to go ahead and go over a quick video of what I am game planning for next week. It's not going to be very long. I don't have too many things that I'm actually looking into because we are getting news that, the U.S. is now bombing Iran, RGC. So you can possibly expect USO to open up a little bit gapped up. That's usually what ends up happening, but anything can happen in this market. We are in a very, very just news driven market, and it can go either which way. On do we gap up off of like a peace deal right before futures opens? Because I'm recording this at 3:49 on Sunday. So who knows, we might get like a ceasefire right before the market opens, or there could be more bombardment and bombings or whatever against Iran, which can possibly, bring SPY and QQQ down and USO higher, because they usually trade kind of inverse. I mean, sometimes you get the oil catching a bid while these are catching a bid as well, but we're probably in an era right now where, because of the bombings happening, that we might see oil actually gap up possibly, and the S&P and Qs kind of gap down. I think I looked over at the Dow recently over the weekend because they have like weekend pricing, and it looked like the Dow was down like 0.33%. So I mean, it's not really big, but we'll see how futures opens. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I'm displaying my charts right now. So give me 1 second as I go ahead and do that. I did not know that this was not showing. There we go. My chart is now showing. That would have been ridiculous. But anyways, let's get straight into it. So I'm going to show you guys the notes that I do have. So this is what I have written down currently and what I'm prepping for. I am going to go ahead and read that to you guys in a second while I go over the charts. Okay? So the first name we're going to go ahead and go into straight out the gate is Apple. Now, I'm looking at Apple because they did have that, kind of deal with BE, and this name has caught in some really, really good strength off of that news. But now we're kind of entering this little double top short sale opportunity. So in my notes, this is what I put. I said, watch Apple if market is heavy and name is weak. With or versus market could be a double top short sell. If it gets over 317.40s, could be an all-time high breakout long. Goal is to be patient here and allow the market to settle while seeing what this name wants to do. Because this name does have relative strength behind it, I don't want to be the first one trying to short a double top short sell. You don't need to be. This name has given a nice inside day. So let's say hypothetically, the news is bad. Well, the news is always bad. It's war, right? Like no one really wants war. At least nobody I know. So, maybe if the market somehow gaps down and it could recatch a bid and everything's kind of good, it's all about the market's reaction, right? So what I'm going to be focused on here today, because Apple did put in an inside day, I really want to gauge, are we going to be losing the prior day's low, or are we going to be trying to absorb the previous day high and continue for that breakout on the long side? If we're breaking out, guys, I'm not shorting. I'm not shorting if Apple opens up 317.40s, 45s, 50s, start skipping 320s. I'm not doing that. So I won't be partaking, in a short if it does that. Now, I might long it. If the market, gaps down and it catches a rebid and we know that Apple is continuously having strength behind it, I'm 100% willing to long the name, but I'm personally better at short selling. So I'm kind of hopeful that this is kind of a double top short sell so that it could come down to some moving averages, maybe the daily 50 again, which is hanging around like 298. So you could undercut 300, make everyone shake out, sub 300 and rebid it back up. I think that's enough for Apple to then get that all-time high break into the end of the year. So that's kind of my goal on the name. So that's my plan on Apple. That's how it looked on the daily. This is how it looked closing out on Friday. So I actually did short this move, by the way. I didn't catch this whole thing, but I do have an image where I have a short. I can actually share that with you guys real quick. I shared it with one of my buddies, so I'll post it in here, my Discord. All right, so this is the Apple trade right here. I got short, and then I got out here, and then this big ass washout happened. I'm like, are you kidding me, bro? That couldn't happen, 2 minutes before. But it was near the end of the day. I just wanted to go ahead and take that trade and cut it off. I took a small position here, got stopped out, re-entered when it got real backsidey, and unfortunately I missed out on a good chunk of change to close out the day. But it's all good. I mean, I'm not gonna cry over spoiled milk, So that is my first stock I'm looking into. Next one's gonna be AMD. So this is gonna be relatively common as well, guys. Honestly, it's the whole semiconductor sector, guys. Like it's just the whole no matter what, you have to have a semiconductor that you like to trade. You have to have it on your watch list. AMD, I absolutely hate trading this name, but it's kind of the same opportunity here as Apple, where we're kind of just grinding. I mean, this name has been so much stronger than like any other semiconductor, memory name, anything. It's just been like, you look at AMD and then you pull up Nvidia, and it's like, look at kind of the difference of where they're at. AMD's on the cusp of another all-time high, and Nvidia's not even close. You have AMAT. We'll talk about this name later. I mean, we have ARM, right? We have MRVO. We have INTC. If you want to trade the triple leverage, you have SOXO. So, all of these, you just have to choose which one's your favorite to trade. I'm going to be completely honest. When it comes to the semiconductors, they're so active that you just have to choose which one do you like to trade. If you're a range-bound trader, right? If you like ranges, I think ARM presents probably one of the better opportunities because it's going to be trading within this range right here. I would say so. So, look how this put this inside day in. I mean, you might get another range day. You might get another 1 or 2 days of range on ARM. If you are one of those people who like to range trade, Marvell, not really rangy, right? It let go of the prior day's low. INTC, I don't think was rangy as well. Let me see. INTC, not rangy. Kind of let go of the previous day lows. Ranges have inside days. So that's what I'm trying to say. AMD is not putting in an inside day. It kind of did, but it closed out near the highs. So we kind of just have to see how it's gonna react, guys. So this is a name where I put this is my notes exactly. I put this name has been really strong versus almost all semiconductors. It closed out near supply highs and not far off of all-time highs. I want to see if this name can get weak with market, or will it continue to have relative strength? Nothing to force, just want to be there on the day it possibly fades or washes out. So that's kind of my thought processes here on AMD. I'm not a fan of trading this name. Think it's a little bit too wide for me. It moves a little too fast, but I'll just size it accordingly. I'll probably, if I take 100 size positions, right, 100% positions that I usually take, on a name like this, I'm probably only going to be trading 30%, 40%. And that's where I honestly will really feel comfortable because this name does move fairly quick, with the liquidity that it does have. So that's kind of my views on AMD. The next name I'm looking at here is Crowd. Crowd finally looks like it's ready to kind of fade a bit. Now it's still holding, the daily 20, it's still there, but this kind of has maybe that exhaustion, right? Caught that bid, it exhausted out, and now it looks like a double top short sell around this area. This looks like, I wouldn't say this is distribution, but what I will say is that, we're kind of letting go of that 209s, and now we're staying heavy under, sub 200. So I would, in an idealistic world, man, this name coming back maybe into the 170s, do a quick little undercut and rally of the daily 20, touch the daily 50 SMA and catch a rebid. I'm all for that. So I'm looking at this name as a possible double top short sell. So this is what I said. I said Crowd had some weakness. Step in. This name has been relatively strong. Looking to see if some weakness in market will allow a bit of a shift in Crowd. Still relative strong, but I want to see if the trend starts going in a different route. So that's my thoughts on Crowd. Obviously, these are the names that you're seeing right now are all relatively strong names. So me wanting to catch that backside move is not something that you need to go for. I'm looking for it, but I'm not forcing any of these theses, right? I'm going to let them play out. I'm going to see what's relatively weak versus the market, and we're going to move on from that. But crowd is something that I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully this name is actually weak, and we can get a good trade off of that. Another one is Dell. I have Dell on my list. I have this qualified as a double top short sell as well with the Apple and the crowd. We got back up here, cleared out oversupply, but could not hold on. So we are still holding above the 10 daily SMA. We're holding above the daily 20 SMA. Nothing I want to rush myself into, but if this thing starts to roll over, I would not be surprised if we see another fill down at 360s, 370s. The thing about it is you have Trump backing this name yet again. So I want to know if Trump backing this name again, saying go out and buy Adele, is just another rehash of when he said buy Adele the first time. So will that weight still be like, oh yeah, we got to go out and bump the price up on Adele because Trump's saying it, or is it the second time and it's like, okay, well, it's not as official as the first time, and this has already ran hundreds of percents. So my thought process behind this is, let's see if last couple of days just stopped out a couple of shorts or maybe trapped some longs, and let's see if the money rotates back down. Maybe we see 370s, 360s in the next couple of weeks as this kind of settles its supply out. But what I put here was Dell looking like it's possibly going for a double top short sell, kind of how I want Apple to go. Have to keep in mind Trump actively on this name with real strength behind it. Possible ops here as well. And that's what I have for Dell. The next one is Meta. I wrote a little bit of a longer thesis here on Meta because Meta did have a nice gap up. And essentially it gapped up and it's now above every single moving average with a pretty decent gap. Is this enough for this name to now hold a continuous bid, or is it going to sell off its gains, go back sub 200 SMA? If this name goes back to 200, back under the 200 SMA, which is this golden line right here, if it goes back under, that's very bearish in my opinion. That is a very bearish look on Meta. So ideally, this is how I'm going to play Meta. I'm going to play it based off of what I learned from Ariel. I'm going to let Meta do what it does, guys. Like straight up, I have this written out, and this is probably going to be on my watch list throughout the whole week. I'm just going to go ahead and let this name play out and do what it does until it can cross over this high. Until it can cross over Friday's high or go sub Friday's lows, I'm not going to touch the name. So if the name stays range bound, between, this range, the Friday's day range, I'm not touching it. Okay, I won't be touching the name. But if we can get a high volume close and or a crack lower and start giving up this day's gains, I want to short that, right? But I want to long it if we start going above 683s. That's where I want to be long, because now we're closing above the gap from Friday. Now this is all market dependent. Who knows if money is shifting out of other names to come into Meta, because Meta did have some news behind it. So that's just my thought process here, and I'll read out what I put in my notes here. So I put Meta gapped up nicely on Friday, straight into some daily supply. Only issue I have is it gapped above every single SMA, including the 200, straight to supply. Goal is honestly to get a feel for macro markets. If this name can have a high volume close setup, will be nice for longs. If it breaches below and we get closure sub 660s, could be heading back to giving up all the gains that it did on the gap up. Be cautious here on this name. Could range for a few days, then we get the real move to either direction. So essentially meaning what I just told you guys, there's no need to rush into this name. This is the kind of name where you can just let it kind of play out. And then once it really makes that decision on, all right, will this gap send us higher, or is this gap meant to just, retrace? We will find out. You don't have to go out there and find that out yourself. You don't have to be the first one short or the first one long because Meta has a gap and you think it's going to continue. Meanwhile, it just ends up chopping, and it can chop, right? You can stay chopped for a while. So that's my thoughts on Meta. And now we have a name that is a little bit relatively weak here, which is PLTR, right? It had a couple of good days. I would say based off of the fact that Michael Burry did go ahead and announce that he's no longer short the position. But also, it was just super, super oversold. We did get a nice bounce. So honestly, my goal here is to see, do we start retracing now? And the reason why I'm thinking that is because if you look at this candle right here, I'll zoom in closer. This candle right here on 7/7, right? It top wicked that 100 daily SMA, and we started failing off of it. Not only did we fail off of that, we kind of gapped lower, popped right back up and gapped low again, but we started to reject the daily 50 SMA on top of that. So if this thing starts to want to retrace, and maybe we even see sub 100s on this name via this thing just keeps, you know, trending down, because this is a good pop, guys. This is a good pop. Like, it got a nice little pop off of this low, and now it could possibly get faded into. What you want to see is it actually lose this kind of demand that it's holding now, which is that 125 to 130 area, right? Or maybe 127s, where you kind of have this right here, this right here, this hold, all this, right? You want to see this whole area. You want to see whether this is going to hold or let go. And then once that holds or let go, you can honestly just make your decision on that. So if it holds above and starts moving to the upside, maybe it somehow finds its way back over the daily 50, maybe the daily 100, and we start working our way towards the daily 200. And if we fail to follow through, maybe we lose the daily 10, the daily 20, and we start losing 120s, 110s, 100s, then we go 90s, 70s. You know, this is easily a stock I can actually see touch somewhere like $70. I would not be surprised. I would absolutely not be surprised if we somehow see, like, you know, Palantir somewhere, you know, in the 70s range, maybe the 80s, somewhere around there. I would not be surprised in the actual slightest. But that's what I have game planned. I have AMAT as well as something that I'm looking at because of, you know, obviously the Michael Burry short. And the fact that semis are kind of a little reversing, right? They're reversing a little bit. So I do have this name up. I really like how this weekly top candle looks. Like, it looks like it just exhausted, and then it just brought some inside days or an inside week, right? It kind of flushed it out, then reclaimed it. But I can definitely see this being like an interim top on the name. So in an idealistic world, what would I want to see? I actually would love to see this name kind of just fade out. Maybe we get an undercut and rally on the 50 daily moving average. And I think that would be kind of beautiful in my opinion. Let's pull up the weekly and see. Yeah, I mean, you know, maybe we get like another 500 retest. You know, like I wouldn't mind that. It doesn't seem like that would be, you know, too far. It's not too much to ask for on AMAT in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking at. I know you have things like Google, you have things like Microsoft, you have other names like that, but this is honestly what I'm just prepared for. Of course, we do have like USO, but we gotta just see how this is gonna open. I'm not an oils trader, guys. Like, it's very rare you see me pull out USO and actually trade this thing. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Does the market cap down gap? You know, does the gap down? And then as soon as the U.S. market opens, retail opens 7 a.m. on Monday, do we start rebidding, V-shaping, and then, you know, seeing what happens after that? Who knows? No one can really give you a conclusive answer. Just names that I'm prepped for, names that I'm looking at. I don't feel the need to press on the gas, which is a very good feeling to have, because it's always the days where you feel like you got to press on something that hinders the way you trade. So I'm sitting in a good position. I'm sitting in a defensive position where I'm just going to go ahead and allow these trades to come to me and just analyze how market reacts off these news, you know, that we're getting. Unfortunately, you know, nobody really wants war, but, you know, look where we're kind of at right now. It's kind of shameful, but it is what it is. That's all I got for you guys. That's all I'm planning on, and hope you guys enjoyed. Later, guys.